Sorry about that.
It's blocked.
Muted.
In the feedback.
These audios up on here.
Okay. Excuse us just a second while we get the audio straightened out.
I'm pretty sure it's mine.
Talk again.
Testing.
Who's muted? You just muted.
Okay. No, I'm.
You have to both mute it and all the volume has to be down as well. If muting is your microphone, you turn the volume down on your computer as well, because that's what you get. Make sure that the volume is down too.
In the process.
I just
That
did
sounds
something.
better. Okay. All right, we okay now? All right. Good evening, everyone. I'll call the Monday, June 7th meeting of the Hastings Planning Commission to order. We'll begin with roll call. Bowers. Brown. Also indicate where you are, if you would please. Denton.
Here, Chambers.
Foster.
Here, City Council.
Bauer.
Here, Chambers.
Rezagy.
Here, Chambers.
Passava.
Here, Dale Chambers.
And Hatfield here. And I'd also like to welcome our interim city manager, Greg Gutshaw. Greg, nice to have you with us. He will be a full member of this body during his term of service here. So
Thank you.
Greg brings a wealth of experience, and we look forward to his participation. If you'll all stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have all received the agenda in your packets. Are there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda?
On the minutes, I did not vote no on the wheels or the parking.
Okay, the approval of the minutes will be our next item, so we'll come back to that. Thank you. Anything for the agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve? Or moved and supported to approve the agenda as distributed. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, approval of the minutes of the May 3rd meeting. Lois, you indicated that,
It was an RD for parking.
okay,
Did I voted no? I did not.
okay, did you vote affirmative or, okay. Note that change. Anything else with the minutes? We have a motion to approve the minutes with that correction. Moved and supported. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Informative items, we have none, so we'll move into public hearings. We have one scheduled for tonight, which is for the purpose of submitting a recommendation of adoption to the Hastings City Council for the City of Hastings Master Plan, which we'll all receive a copy of. There's also a link online to it. This has certainly been an extended process, thanks primarily to COVID, but I think that we had taken advantage of that opportunity to gain some additional input. Thank Rebecca and her staff and associates for all the work that they did on it. Before I open the public hearing, Dan, Rebecca, anything you'd like to say?
Unless you want me to.
Here, she is here. That's true. Why, yeah. The question is, how much time do we have tonight?
Oh,
I mean, you could read us the whole thing. I'm sure
I would
some,
never.
I know you would, but yeah. All right, I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone looking at my computer, it doesn't look like we have any members of the public with us in the Zoom meeting. Anyone here want to? Okay, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed.
Dave, you did receive the county's.
Actually, I followed up with, Jim, and he followed up with the bid. There was not any comment that.
Yeah, there was nothing official that came
Oh,
to
out
me,
of the
so, yeah.
So to that end, I did not receive any correspondence from any jurisdictions that master plan is doing.
Well, then I will share what Jim said.
Okay,
Because he did indicate that the planning commission, had read it and, was very much in support of it. But personally, he said to me that he thought it was one of the best plans. So, naturally, I'm going to share.
naturally, you should have let one of us be able to share that, so.
I
you could-
know, I thought
You could just take a bow, so.
I thought you would have received it, so I
Yeah.
apologize.
Not a problem, but that's great to know, and yeah, congratulations to you
Jim McNeil.
on behalf of the county. Yeah, county. So, I think we've got a great document. I'm certainly proud to be able to take that on to city council for adoption. But I think we always need to be mindful that, as I tell so many of my clients that I help with strategic planning, used to be a strategic plan was a 5-year document, then it became a 3-year document, and then a 2-year document. Now, it's a monthly document because things do change, and we need to be prepared to acknowledge that. So we want to make sure that we treat this document accordingly, keep it in front of us, and be mindful of anything that might necessitate a change. So, other comments? Otherwise, Dan?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would like to point out that Chelsea Foster did point out that there were a couple of typographical issues that is addressed in the I'll share with Rebecca that master plan reflect that. Also, there's been something that's come up just in the last couple of days regarding something that Greg has pointed out, and I pointed out to Rebecca. In our master plan, obviously there's 4 sections to it: business and housing and collaboration and business industry. One of the items that I've asked Rebecca to look into is there's an act, public act from 120 of 1961 that deals with principal shopping districts and then business improvement districts also. The principal shopping districts is the one that I would ask Rebecca to do a little bit more research. I know she's looked into it. If we make reference to the principal shopping district in our master plan, it allows us some additional special assessment capabilities that we currently don't have based on our charter and our ordinances, so. I don't want to bore you with all the details of the principal shopping district, but it is something, from 60 years ago that does give us some flexibility that maybe our own code and charter does not. So, I would like to speak to Greg. Greg actually did had some communication with Bohort, and this was brought to our attention. So, happy to have Greg or Rebecca weigh in on a small addition to this section. Let me jump in first, and then I'll be happy to turn it over to Rebecca. The way to think about this is that there are a set of tools that we can use here in Hastings for economic development purposes. And the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more capable you are to do certain things. The one tool that Dan has referred to, the Principal Shopping District Act, is a unique tool in that it grants powers that you wouldn't otherwise have available to you to do things cooperatively in your principal shopping area. And the way we get access to that is to make sure that an area of the community is designated in the master plan as a principal shopping district. And this is really to overcome a limitation. My recommendation to do this is to overcome a limitation that we currently have in our ordinances as it relates to the use of special assessment. By making a minor adjustment in the master plan to reference a principal shopping area, we then have the ability to use special assessment for a variety of purposes in the downtown. Whether we do that or not is another matter. But if we don't include it in the master plan, we definitely won't do that. And so the recommendation that I am making, and Dan is making here, is that we designate the area that is basically our DDA area as our principal shopping area, so that there would be that additional tool made available. Rebecca can give a little bit more the legal background on this and talk about it in terms of the master plan, but I'm happy to answer any of the technical questions about the use of that tool if commissioners have any questions about it. And this is the time we need to do it. Obviously, it has to be in the master plan. We'd like to do it at this time of adoption. And I'm sorry to be bringing it up at the last minute, but this was a last minute discussion.
Thank you. No reason to apologize.
Yeah, I totally agree with Greg. It's perfect timing. I mean, public hearing is where you make your last, changes and adjustments to that. So it's great timing. And it is an interesting opportunity for you as well. I mean, a lot of these tools that really don't require any reference in the plan. So it's kind of cool that this one actually has that master plan foundation because it requires that sort of thought of that time. So it's very positive thing. A lot of communities who use it do in fact keep it within the DDA boundaries. You don't have to. But I think that's another great distinction is to say if it's in the plan, then you can move forward with it and use it for the things that you can use for that you're authorized to use for or not. But having it in your plan, I think is very thoughtful way, in addition to it being required, it's a thoughtful way to move forward. A lot of communities use it for as a marketing arm of the community because it's in that DDA district, but they sort of like take charge of the marketing, even though the DDA. That I don't think that's what the idea is here, but I'm just saying it is a useful tool that communities use. We certainly, I did go ahead and look at the master plan. I understood there was already an interest in having these things to the boundaries, which makes sense. So I was kind of looking at where the best place to plug in and make reference to it. So that's what I was doing. I think importantly for using the processing point, it does not change your process tonight. You obviously are in a position to make any changes that you want tonight, and it doesn't have to come back to you. It can just move forward on to the council, and so it should not represent you.
If I may make one more comment. One thing I feel badly about in terms of how late this is coming to you is that it really doesn't afford you any opportunity to ask the question as to whether the boundaries of the principal shopping area should be the same as the DDA area. I'm asking you to do that. It simplifies the processes for us in terms of using that. If there is using that tool and there is some urgency to our doing that, my recommendation would be that at the time that you come back and revisit your master plan in another few years to update it, that's a good time then to debate, should this be this boundary? Should it be a smaller amount? Should it be a larger amount? And you can have a more thorough conversation about it at that time. I don't think that for us to move forward with it in the way that we need to, we really don't have the opportunity for a more thoroughgoing analysis of what the right boundary should be. That's why it's my recommendation that it be the same as the EDA boundaries. The Act specifically allows for having the boundaries of the principal shopping area be the same as the DDA, and it would allow then for the DDA to function as the board for the principal shopping district. So it simplifies all that administration, but it leaves you out of the discussion as to whether it's the right thing. So I'm begging some consideration on just moving it forward that way for all of the reasons that I've just indicated.
Okay, thank you. Which actually makes me question some of what I said in the preface to all of this. How easily can this document be amended?
The master plan?
Yeah.
Well, you can amend the master plan as frequently as you want. There's some time involved to it, because the same process that you just went through is what you have to go through.
Right, but it can be amended. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm not uncomfortable with approving it with the recommended inclusion, but if we need to insert additional detail,
Absolutely.
there is a way for us to do that.
And you review the plan actually every year, right? I mean, you have what you say, you do your main one at the time.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Questions on that? Otherwise, it certainly seems to make good sense.
One other question I had posted in, and I didn't know if you looked at it yet, was just a little sliver of land behind Aldi. I didn't know for sure if that was now city, within the city limits now. That is, that little sliver is just not
So
in
now
the
it's not in the
maps
map.
yet. And I looked at that as maybe logical industrial expansion area someday, since it's right there. But again, it's something I didn't know if we're so late in the game that that's tricky to change that map at this point.
Oh, no, we're so tall. It's not in the map.
Good catch.
Yeah, that is, type it out.
Yeah, I did not see it, but, so you can cut that all, sketched out.
I think it would be easy to do an overlay with like the GIS.
I mean, just your writing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, just. Thank you so much.
Okay. We have a motion
Make a
to,
motion that we send this on to council with our recommendation approved.
with the two
With the
two additions that have been noted. Okay, we have a motion. Pardon? Yeah, my hearing is not what it used to be, Dave, so.
I didn't say it,
Okay. We have a motion and support. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Thank you all, and again, Rebecca, thank you for all of your work. Greg, we appreciate your diligence in pointing that out to us, and it's the first of many recommendations that you're able to assist us with.
All right, Mr. Chairman, one time, this will go to city council for their June 28th meeting. The June 14th meeting, which is a week from tonight, agenda is purposely gonna, the regular meeting agenda is gonna be a little lighter than usual. Because of some additional work that the city council has to do.
No explanation
Next week.
necessary, so we'll note that the consideration will be on the 28th. Pardon? Okay, we'll move on to old business. We have any update from JPA, JPC? Don't think either of them have met.
Yes, that's not true, Mr. Chairman. The JPA, the Joint Planning Alliance, did meet on May 17th. Representatives from all the units of government were there. There wasn't any specific items of business on the agenda, so it was mostly a roundtable discussing items that are occurring in various of the jurisdictions. If I may, just to highlight a few of them that were of particular interest to Jim Brown from Hastings Township, reported on efforts to revive a Frank Lloyd Wright project that had been designed for Charlton Park. So that's there's some renewed interest in that. All they need is money to accomplish that. Larry Watson from Rutland Township reported on their efforts looking at marijuana. Businesses in the township. Jennifer Heinstein talked about working to set up a committee that help the townships decide what to do with the latest round of COVID funding. Many of them are waiting for additional information about what kinds of infrastructure projects will be eligible for funding for that. She also reported on efforts to establish a broadband committee to look at filling some of the gaps in broadband coverage in the county. I think those are the highlights from that meeting. And then the Joint Planning Commission meeting was scheduled, but they had no agenda items, so that meeting was canceled.
Questions for Greg? Hearing none. Dan, the 2021 work task list, anything you want to?
No additions or deletions as we work through the test we've all used in practice.
The tracking report.
The only comment I'll make there is I did drop off the Karen Suber for the panel. All those conditions have been met, so she's been brought down.
Questions for Dan?
They asked the day to end about legacy. Anybody can talk to Travis, see where he's at up the drainage issues up there?
No, I know that they're still working through that. The site plan approval process from Travis. That's
I will combine the update on item B and E, which is the accessory dwelling unit and two-family dwelling units. In my last report, I indicated to you that we were really hopeful that we could find a comprehensive way to address that in order to really deal with it as a single issue. But as we've delved into this more and more, it became recently evident that that was going to be extraordinarily difficult, if not impossible. So we picked out a couple of items of bovine fruit, particularly trying to deal with a number of non-conforming issues in our single-family neighborhoods where we now have two families occupying many of those properties. So Rebecca is working on that, and probably have some additional recommendations to you in our next meeting for how we move forward. One thing that we have done, and we're still fine tuning it, but we've had with the county's help gone through a mapping exercise trying to identify in the city where we have multiple family dwellings So I think that could help. First category was
Well, single family, we have 4 categories, so single family, just so that we understand where the rental occupancies were. But then our key areas were the 2 to 4 unit and the
2 to 4, 5 to 7,
5 to
8
7
plus.
units.
Yeah.
With our interest not really being 8 and the single, but those 2 middle categories.
And we will, as we get that fine tuned, we'll share that with you. We're certainly, I think, interested in that and informative exercise for us to go through. So more to come. Any questions or comments? And item F, text amendment regarding the semi-tractor, semi-trailer park.
As you recall, last month's meeting, the public hearing was, started the public hearing for consideration of the text amendment to 90-930. Then the discussion, we tabled it due to some inconsistencies in the text, in the current text and text amendment recommendations. So tonight we'll continue the discussion, to try to reflect a text amendment that make sense, clear up some inconsistencies in our current language, and then give the opportunity for as a special use for the outdoor storage of semi-tractor, semi-trailers, and vehicles with 2 or more rear axles. So in your packet is the staff report from Rebecca that highlights the existing text, some noticeable findings that she found, that she discovered, and then also recommend text amendment change, section 90-929.
Right, so hopefully this addresses some of the things that the commission brought up last week, which I think those 2 items that resonated with me was, first of all, I think there was discussion, and I don't know that there was consensus as to whether or not recreational vehicles should be included in the storage opportunity. And then there was also discussion about exactly what vehicles, that phraseology that you have in your ordinance right now, exactly what those would include. So I just thought that might be helpful to include that sort of a sidebar in these reports so that we can understand. I think really that for the most part, I think it was hitting on what you were attempting to achieve, with the exception of the fact that there are recreational vehicles that have 2 or more rear axles. So there was an inconsistency there when you were saying that vehicles could be parked in anywhere, and then you have prohibition of parking them everywhere. So I think the proposed amendment is designed to clear up the inconsistency, which I think is extremely important. But then secondly, to offer that amendment that would allow for the parking lot, for the parking of them, so that there's some place in the community that you can park those vehicles. Now, in the text I've offered you, I have included recreation. But if your discussion needs you to agree that that is what you want to do, that's an easy phrase to do. But the text is there. And then I did offer some sort of ancillary amendments just to clean up some, or provide clarity to subsection H, which talks about what you do on the street and what you do there. The way it's phrased right now, I didn't think it addressed maybe all that you wanted it to, so I've suggested that.
Okay, you want to go ahead and walk us through your suggestions then?
Alrighty, so starting with subsection D, you'll see the bold is where I've added text. And I think this clears up the inconsistency because you're indicating that semi-tractors, trailers, vehicles with 2 or more rear axles are prohibited in residential district, except as allowed by section 9776, which is where you allow rec vehicles to be parked there. So except for as what's allowed by that section is prohibited, and so that cleans that up. Subsection E then, I'm taking out any other areas, just like I took out areas there in the districts. I don't think when you say area, then it's unclear in an ordinance whether you're regulated by district or by use or by neither when you say residential area. So I do think you need clarity there. So I assume you meant by zoning district. So I included residential districts and then added the second level of point there in subsection E that if you're not talking about residential district, you're talking about the non-residential district. There was no other change to subsection E. Then subsection F is a new provision that would add for this off-street parking area that we had discussed last month. Again, I've added the terminology for rec vehicles to be allowed within that. It would be in a non-residential district. It would be a special land use. And the only other standards that would be attached to that or used in the review that I would say are your special land use criteria. So you didn't add any additional standards beyond that. But as you know, your special land use criteria then let you see what's opposite the street from there, what's adjacent to, and you can then apply conditions of approval to mitigate any concerns you might have. So that gives you that ability to deal with that. No change to G and then subsection 8. Right now, the outdoor parking or storage of any unattached trailer or recreation vehicle as defined on any streets, alleys, or public ways is prohibited. So that once again, when we're just talking about unattached recreational vehicles, then it lies again inconsistent with the previous 2 subsections. So sometimes you're saying it's allowed, sometimes you're not. So by virtue of talking about unattached trailers or vehicles, it's just adding that explanation so that we're talking about when it's not a motorhome, it's a vehicle that you can't park in the road with the exception of a few of. Now that's in your ordinance now. So this is not really a new standard, it's just kind of a big thing. And that word sequencing is taken from your definition. So that's why you would use this.
Questions for Rebecca?
So in all these changes, where can we park the utility trailer with two or three axles at? And is it still parked it like a normal utility trailer with one axle in our backyard?
So no, if it's a utility trailer that you pull behind your truck or car, you currently do not allow that anywhere. And this does not change that.
So if you have a travel trailer with 2 axles, you can't park it in your yard.
Correct. Well, a travel trailer, a rec vehicle.
Well, basically, the way I was reading it, the utility trailer is included in the recreational vehicles.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think we need to make sure we're all in agreement on that. Because
Yeah, let me pull up.
That's what I was reading in our code.
utility trailers are commonly found.
Right, and they're commonly found as 2 or 3 axles as well.
Yeah.
Including fifth wheels and goosenecks and the little brush, that. So, at this point, we have them all over town. Back there, but according to our ordinance, we're not talking.
Well, yeah, let me pull up, you're saying you're reading the definition of rec vehicle in your zoning ordinance?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me pull that up. Real quick. Because this was not, I did not change the essence of what you had there, now I added to it.
Right.
So, so yeah, let me-
No, I think John's point is simply that utility trailers have become
yeah,
very common.
and are you wanting them to be allowed? I know you're just
Just
asking.
about,
a
we don't
question.
have enough room in our parking down there for semi-trailers, and then you add RVs to it, you're going to have a problem with utility trailers. We're gonna have to have a city parking lot that's gonna have to have 100 spaces in it just for what utility trailers we have in town.
If I might add on one, just a question I have about this. The definition here talks about the rear axle.
Yeah.
On a trailer. Well, I wouldn't think of a trailer on an axle as being a front or rear. I wonder from a clarity standpoint, you know, how we would cover that in the ordinance.
Yeah, probably the appropriate description is simply a trailer with one or more axles. But I can think of about 6 houses on my immediate block that have these parked in their backyards, and they're, it's not an issue, what it is.
The fact that a brush pile is on that,
Right.
how do
We wouldn't need the brush pile if we didn't have to allow utility trailers.
Boat trailers, I know several boat trailers have got. It's true. Now, I know, but I guess, same thing, you know.
So, oh, okay. So in your ordinance, section 9776 permits parking or storage of a recreational vehicle in any zoning district. And then it has the locational standards. And then it defines a rec vehicle as camper trailer, travel trailer, truck camper, motorhome, boat trailer, horse trailer, utility trailer, and off-road vehicle. So you're correct, a utility trailer would be a rec vehicle in your ordinance. And 776 does allow that with some locational standards. So in answer to your question, you currently allow that, and this would not change that. Even if your trailer were to have, with the proposed amendment, it would allow a utility trailer that had 2 or more rear axles. Because right now it's not.
With the new changes that will allow
Yeah.
us to have our campers with 3 axles under it, or our utility trailer with 3 axles. That kind of thing. We'll do that.
Because right now, the D says the outdoor parking or storage of semi-tractors, semi-trailers, or vehicles with 2 or more rear axles in residential districts is prohibited.
Right.
So, right now, that means if a recreational vehicle has more than 2 rear axles, it's prohibited under that section. Under 776, it says you're allowed to park a recreational vehicle in anywhere, in any district.
Right.
So there was this inconsistency there. So which provision do you follow is essentially the question. So the change that says except as allowed by section 776 is simply reconciling those 2 provisions, but it's not changing anything. So you can have a recreational vehicle anywhere in any residential district, or actually any district, and then this language no longer prohibits it through this other provision.
Okay, so we can, then this new amendment to have said something, you can have a 3-axle utility trailer for fifth wheel. or-
Yeah, well,
Well, why
Yeah.
do we even need the first paragraph under H? Since that is inconsistent with the provisions of 776.
well, that is for on-street. So all of these other things are talking about off-street parking. So then this is talking about on-street. And it's talking about for a temporary.
Okay, I see, yeah.
So as long as it's not a semi-trailer, considered semi-trailers are still not allowed. in residential.
Right.
That's about-
Actually, it's not, they're not allowed in.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? So in subsection D, you say they're not allowed in residential, then in subsection E, you say they're not allowed in non-residential. And then you have another section that says they're not allowed on the street. Which is why we're looking at this new subsection path. You're saying, well, if we're not allowing them anywhere. But then it got thrown into the mix where the thought was, well, if we're going to authorize the establishment of parking areas, should we also allow rec vehicles? Which then raised the question of, because there are some rec vehicles that have more than, have 2 or more rear axles. And so they would not be, you know, and should they be included, because they would be one of those vehicles not allowed elsewhere except by 776. So it just got, you know, looking at all these different levels, and my attempt was to improve that, but now
What I'd like to see is that we continue with our utility trailers and fifth wheels and that kind of stuff in the backyard, so normally. Plus, also, there's people that don't really have a lot of room in the backyard to be able to store it in this area we were talking about that Bill wanted to store trailers in.
Yeah.
So,
you can, and you can now, and you still will be able to. This does not change that. This really changes nothing with recreational vehicles, essentially, other than it helps the enforcement officer know that he doesn't have two conflicting standards. Because otherwise, he's looking at it saying, in one provision, they're not allowed, in the next provision, they're allowed. Which do I enforce?
and then there's already cases like that. That's just what arose last week.
Oh,
So he's got utility trailer with 2 axles that he's told people to have property.
yeah. And it could be argued that under 776, that it's not.
Right. Yeah, the worst part is my neighbor looks over and sees my utility trailer and a 2-axle trailer. It says, you let the city mayor pro temp do it on his property, but I can't do it on mine. And I was almost gonna have.
Well, I think, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just a follow-up to the question about Bill's question of his property. Is that an opportunity for somebody like that to come before us, to get permission to do like a private storage on site? That would be the avenue.
Yes, because it includes recreational vehicles, or it includes that whole laundry list that is in 776. So, yes, it means that any type, virtually any type of trailer could be accommodated there.
And the idea here too was to allow it both on a lot that already had a business, if they wanted to, or on a lot that was not associated.
Okay,
That at least clears a little bit up.
all right, then, are we ready to reschedule the public hearing for our next meeting?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I know I'm very late to discussion on this, since this is my first meeting. Perhaps you covered the two with the rate. One of which is that your proposing language, the language that's proposed would allow for semi-tractors, semi-trailers, and the like in any non-residential zoning district. you're only imposing the basic standards under your special land use without any that are specifically related to this kind of. And my reservations about this have to do with the potential that you could be fairly close to residential areas in certain types. Particularly looking at the sorts of activities that take place specifically related to things like semi-tractors that are allowed to run all night long during cold weather. So as to, raise these issues. And if you talk about those, then fine, and we can move on. I don't want to go back over language. I would, ordinarily, I would expect that we might consider the language specific to this kind of use in addition to the standards that we have for all special dealing with certain potentially certain other characteristics, such as distance from residential areas or fencing requirements that if they're within certain proximity to certain kinds of uses. And if you talk about these things and decided not to.
Well, I guess excuse me for interrupting, but I think, you know, we felt that by making it special land use, we had the ability to make those determinations. Do you feel that's not the case?
No, I don't. I do agree that you have that ability to do that. But if there are standards that you could impose, that you would impose in all instances where this might occur, I think that it's better to have those written in the ordinance so that there's not a question as to whether you're being arbitrary or applying standards between different applicants that you have coming forward. My experience with working with special land uses and zoning ordinance have the general standards, but sometimes there are uses that you also impose specific standards related to that particular use. And that's, I'm merely raising the question as to whether or not you feel that's necessary. If you don't, that's fine. We can talk about it and we can move on. I don't want to create a situation in which you regret that I've joined the planning.
Particularly now on your first
No,
night.
that's exactly my point. And that's why, again, not having been involved in a conversation before, but where you have all non-residential zones, but then you don't have any specific standards related to that particular use, that's why I raised that point.
I never think about the issue of running. That's why we have in our parking arrangement up there, we have the ability to plug in there. Right. And most other places that Westfeld, I don't think he has any plan on putting any kind of. That is fairly, that's right, kitty corner of residential.
I guess that, yeah. It would seem to me that this is going to be something that we're not going to deal with frequently. It's unusual use for property. And to try to get more detail, we're probably still not going to cover everything. And given the variety of locations where we may encounter these, I'd like to think we can deal with it as, under the special use. But I think that you raise a couple of good points that, you know, we certainly do not want to forget about, like winter, running the engine.
Well, then you think too, when EW Bliss go full guns with 3 ships over the outage, trucks out to the.
Sure, yeah.
And that's just close.
Yeah. But I guess where I was going with that is that I think that at this point, perhaps we don't need to try to build it into the ordinance, but we certainly ought to provide, develop a list that, Dan can use, to make sure that we don't forget about certain issues when we're evaluating this, what special use, limitations we may impose.
Rebecca, what impact would that have from a zoning board perspective with the special use? We don't get very many requests for special use review. But if we did, and there are no stated standards, like Greg just maybe suggested, how does the zoning board then evaluate what is reasonable or what other properties in the same district enjoy if we don't have anything like proximity to residential district in this case, how would the zoning board handle something like that?
Well, so first of all, we did discuss this, because you have special uses that have standards and you have, most special uses do not, but sometimes they do. And when you have a special use that has standards, it's because you've said this kind of a use has a lot of very technical things that we're going to just require as a matter of course. And every time we get one of these, a gravel line, or, we're going to want these things. Well, that's not always the case that's not the case with many special entities. So it was my opinion, and I know we discussed it at the commission level as well, that this was one of those cases where you didn't need to begin to articulate, because then you have to start waiving them when they don't apply. Either you waive them or they have to go seek relief. And neither of those things are ideal. Now, to your question, is the special land use criteria are designed, they are impact-based criteria. So as you, as a planning commission, are reviewing the special land use and site permit, you cannot grant a special use permit without site permit. And you are rendering your findings based on the site plan, which show you the surrounding zoning, the surrounding land use, the distances from those, and any amenities or operational elements that are associated with that. So if they were going to have, trucks running, or if they're going to add lights, or if that has to be on the site plan, right? And if it's not, then they can't do it. I mean, the site, what you approve is what you're saying you will do. And that doesn't have to be in the ordinance. Now, when you review it, then you're asking that question and you come to your criteria about, impact on the natural environment or compatibility with the zoning use or impact on public facilities, you go right through the criteria. That's when you make those distinctions, compatibility and character. You say what's going on around it. Because if it's in an industrial area, you're not going to have the same concern that you would. You're going to look for fencing as it relates to public safety. You're going to look for lights as it relates to investment. You're going to go right down these criteria. It's my opinion that this is one, I guess I'm in agreement with you that I think on this kind of a special land use, it's not necessary. He is absolutely correct that there are special land use who absolutely want to add those things that are your issues with it. Anytime you look at it, if you're going to allow guest houses, that they have to be a minimum size. You're not just going to leave that up to every time you look at it, right? When you get it, or you're not going to say, well, we think this guest house should be this size. So that's just an analogy. But on a parking lot, I think your issues that you would have with a storage parking lot are impact-based issues and are naturally covered under special.
I feel we talked about this briefly last month. That say somebody pulls on a trailer and it happens to have a political ad on the side, is that already disallowed somehow by some ordinance? I guess that one of those unintended consequences that we don't want to see somebody park political candidate X 2024, you know, they pay $30 a month for that,
Well,
park that trailer.
okay, so you can't regulate signs by content,
Okay,
okay? So whether you're for or against, you can't regulate your signs by content, but you do have sign standards. And whether they're on a vehicle or some other structure, they're subject to the sign requirements of the ordinance. And then that's based on district. It's based on. So those would apply. Now, I would say that, normally you don't allow vehicles to be used for signage in terms of, for the purposes of advertising. But, you can't just allow something because it does something that.
But I don't think it necessarily has much implication for what we're doing here with storage, lots of trailers, but you only have to drive down State Street to see any number of commercial vehicles with significant advertising on them that are parked strategically for advertising purposes, not for parking purposes.
Yeah. And I agree, I don't know how even effective that would be in a storage lot. Right? That's the end of. But anyway, to your point, it's your sign ordinance covered.
Not necessarily that's what we're here for. Okay, we're ready to reschedule the public hearing for our next.
Oh, no, this is the public hearing.
We didn't republish it as such.
Well, you postponed your public hearing from last month to this month. I mean, if you want to republish it, but you don't have to. You
Okay, no,
postponed
I'm
it to-
looking for guidance, so,
So,
guide
okay.
me.
So, well, yeah, so you had text in front of you.
Yeah.
And you held your public hearing, and then you postponed it to modify the text, and that does not trigger a new, because we didn't do wild interpretation, we're working on the same ordinance for the same purpose. So you are in a position to make a recommendation tonight.
Okay, do I need to reopen the public hearing?
Did this reflect that you opened the closed it? Then you probably should receive public comment to do.
Mr. Chairman, if I may jump in here. There is language in the city's charter that talks about when it's necessary to republish and hold a public hearing. There are substantive changes to the language of the ordinance. I didn't realize this issue was coming up, but this question is going to come up as to how to approach it, but I'm a little reluctant to, without taking a closer look at this. I'm sure that Rebecca is correct as it relates to the Zoning Enabling Act or Planning Act, but I don't know how it relates to our particular charter language.
Okay.
As it relates to-
Well, I'm looking at the minutes, and we actually opened and closed a public hearing.
You did open and close it.
Yes.
Yeah, well, so Greg's talking about, not the question I asked, but, and I don't know, I'm guessing your charter, but I'm not really going to use it, so. The charter is generally talking about general ordinances and not zoning, zoning typically regulated by the, zoning ordinance. But, do you happen to have the charter? Normally under the zoning enabling act, as long as you postpone your public hearing.
We did not postpone.
Oh, you did?
We opened it and closed it.
You postponed your action, I should
We
say,
postponed the action
to tonight.
after we had
Yes, and,
closed the public hearing.
and that's fine, that's fine. The reason I asked if you closed it is whether or not you had to take my public comment.
Okay,
Because once you open and close it, then you don't. Unless you want to, you're always free to take it. But,
we had none, and I don't think
Yeah.
we've done anything that's going to create more.
Yeah, so that was a procedural. I was just talking about the receipt of public comment. Under the zoning enabling act, what you did last month to postpone it to this month allows you to act, to make the recommendation tonight. So, I don't know if your charter is speaking to zoning. That would be unusual, but it might.
It doesn't distinguish, it doesn't make that distinction.
It just says ordinance.
Yeah, do you think that, without me carrying on conversation with Chairman, do you think that the zoning enabling act would take precedence over charter language that relates to the zoning ordinance and the procedure part of that? That's a good argument.
Yeah. What does it say with respect to, I mean, I'm not sure what part of this you're feeling the charter's questioning.
Whether there were substantive changes. to the
Oh.
language.
Yeah, there were, in my opinion,
Okay, that's fine.
I think that's the more salient question, is not which to proceed, because the zoning enabling act speaks to substantive changes as well. But we were talking about the same section, we were talking about versus the off-street parking, the same subsections. So the fact that you're changing word sequences and that sort of thing, is not really substantive, generally speaking.
Okay, then, are we ready to make a recommendation to council?
Make a motion to move this to council with the
Moved and supported, further discussion,
Who was the support?
all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say. Same issue, will this get a first reading at what meeting? So. okay. More things. Yeah, that's tough. Yeah. Okay, new business, we've been asked to set a public hearing for our July meeting to consider site plan approval and special use permit for parking lot reconstruction for Spectrum Health Clinic Hospital. We have when we think that it's going to be relatively straightforward.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a comment. For our zoning ordinance, parking lots do require site plan approval. This is a complete reconstruction of the parking lot between the hospital and the fitness center, basically. This is a total reconstruction. Putting in islands, there'll be new rainwater runoff, catch basins, engineering with the project. So the parking lot itself necessitates site plan approval. Also, Spectrum Health Clinic as a hospital, subject to special use in that district. So, public hearing is required due to special use process.
What is that? Public hearing, does that change, don't they, because the size of the building, they have a certain amount of parking spots? Isn't that kind of why we use fish active park? So if they're gonna put islands, is that gonna change the amount of cars that park there?
Well, and that's a great question, Mr. Mayor. Hence the requirement for a site plan approval. That will be part of this board's site plan approval. Will be the net of positive and negative effect the parking lot reconstruction may have on this park.
But in essence, they're taking what is a parking lot and proposing that it be a new parking lot. They're not, yeah, I mean, it's not as if they're creating substantial new parking, yeah, that is not currently used for that purpose.
We'll make a motion to set a public hearing for July 6th.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Okay, open public discussion and comment. Yes. Okay, thank you. We appreciate you being here and covering this, and we welcome Ben, who will be following up with us in future meetings. Commission comments.
Chairman, I would like to apologize to the balance of the members of the commission for dominating the conversation here this evening.
Not necessarily.
Coming in completely unprepared for the issues that we're going to be bringing here.
I would say you seem to be very well prepared, and no reason to apologize. Your comments are constructive and appreciated, so. Yeah. Any other comments? Motion to adjourn. Moved and supported. Further discussion, all in favor say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.